Good evening. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And I am here today to do an interview with Carl Vancaemelbeke. He will correct my pronunciation of his name because I'm not sure I got it correct. And we are going to find out about his life, his work, and his passions for life. Having said that, I want to remind you that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. Carl, can you please introduce yourself?
Right on. Thank you for having me, Carla. First and foremost, very excited to be here. Carl Vancaemelbeke from Canada. Last name comes from Belgium. And very excited to have a great conversation.
Okay, tell people who you are and what you're about, Carl.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Carla. So I am working as an entrepreneur for a business called Techno Tutor, and we explore how people are programmed and how the educational system really turns kids into employees and really doesn't convey them into free thinking adults. They just continue to be employees for the rest of their lives, right? So with Techno Tutor, you can actually educate your children at home. I've been using it for a year. I'm 25. I used to be a system slave, and now I feel freer than ever, and I question all and keep what is best, investigate all and keep what is best, as well as really investigate my beliefs that I've been programmed with as a kid. Because let me ask you something, Carla. Where does a thought come from?
Well, where do you think a thought comes from?
Right? That's a question that most people don't really think of, but yet we have hundreds, thousands a day. And we might say, oh, it comes from within, it comes from your brain, or I don't know, it might come from the media, who knows, right? Well, the reality of it is there are programs that have been programmed into you from the ages 0 to 7 when you're a kid. When you are within the ages of 0 to 7, you're like a sponge, an empty sponge that's just waiting to get filled, good or bad, right? So the elite, your parents, whether they know about it or not, they take advantage of that, good or bad, right? You integrate everything, and it's great because babies, they crawl, they talk, and they walk at an amazing speed. You drop me off in a country like China, and I won't learn Mandarin as fast as a 3-year-old. Would it take them a couple months? It would take me a couple years, right? That's what we call a natural learning ability. The natural learning ability as a kid is a lot greater than an adult. But circling back, the thought is a pre-programming of sorts. And if you don't actually investigate those and you don't do anything to change them, you're just going to keep acting within a time loop, right? So even if you're aware of it, whether it's 6 months, a year, a couple of years from now, you're going to be participating in the same beliefs and the same behaviors as you participated in when basically from when you're a child. I like to say we grow old, but we never grow up. So that's that's a saying I like to use. And with Techno Tutor, you can investigate those, and you can change. You can do something about those beliefs and those programs. You can dig deep into your subconscious and your unconscious.
How did you get involved in this?
Well, it's an interesting question because I really wasn't meant to get involved in anything like this. Like I said, I was correctly raised by the system.
I have a question. You just said something that brought up another question.
Yeah, shoot.
You said if you believe that we're all programmed
Mm-hmm.
and you came to where you are now, how can
Right.
you say that you were not meant to be in that direction?
That's a very good question. Yeah. So, I mean, I got, for the lack of a better term, dragged in to this process because of seeing a better way of life. I came to realize that to have what you want, you have to listen to people who have what you want, right? So all throughout school, you listen to these teachers who might be divorced, in debt, on antidepressants, the whole 9 yards, right? And that's who you're listening to day in and day out, 6 to 8 hours a day. And you do that for 18 years of your life. So you get conditioned, you get programmed into those things. Once I got out of that and started working a 9 to 5 job at a government funded hospital, local hospital, I realized that even though I accomplished everything I was set out to accomplish and participate in the middle class, because my whole family is in the middle class. So if you're most likely than not, if you're raised in the middle class, the odds are you're going to be in the middle class. Of course, you think of success stories and whatnot. There's very few far and thin, but most of the time, if you're brought up into an elite family, you're going to become an elite. If you're raised poor, you're going to be poor. That's where it comes down to that programming. But luckily for me, I grew up with a friend who was introduced to a lot of this at a young age, and his brother was very successful at a young age and knew in high school that this wasn't the path we were meant to live on. And they reconnected with me after college and started kind of mentoring me and doing one-on-one sessions and really introducing me to what a human's really capable of once we actually take control of our lives and really investigate our past. Because if it wasn't for that, that's where the designation comes in. I don't think I would have been destined to do any of this. I would have just kept participating in that time loop, right? I would have just stayed at the hospital. I would have just worked the corporate ladder for the next 30 years and been miserable and just retired. And I didn't want to have any kids. I didn't want to get married. There were all these things that were pre-programmed into me from what I saw as a kid. Like, I'm a product of divorce. So it only made sense that marriage wasn't a good idea to me, which now sounds crazy.
Okay, you're saying this, but what is it that your friends got you interested in? Are you talking about the law of attraction? Are you talking about the Course of Miracles?
Right.
Take a few steps backwards so anyone who would watch this now or later know what you're talking about. Has a basis.
Yeah, so very good question. So very first, it was just basic exercises. Basic.
Are you following some type of paradigm? Like
so
the law of attraction, the Course of Miracles. So if someone would like to learn more, where would they go?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So the very foundation, it was just basic paper and pen exercises. What do you want? What, you know what I mean? What do you want to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years? Put your timer on your phone at 10 minutes and write your goals, your dreams, your desires. And if that doesn't make you happy, if you're more depressed after that exercise, there's something wrong, right? It means that you don't think you're able to do it. So started with that, started with just general questioning and realizing, wow, I don't really have dreams, desires, or goals. I don't think I can get out of the situation. And from then on, it went to self-forgiveness writing. So there's this program called Destiny I Process Light, or DIP Light, and it's all about self-forgiveness writing. Because it's important that once you do realize that paradigm shift, that you forgive yourself and that you accept the past and that you commit yourself to working on a solution, right? So the line, I forgive myself for accepting and allowing myself to blank, is the key line in the self-forgiveness. And then once you can come up with 10, 15, 20 things that you forgive yourself for, right? And then after it's backing that up with, I commit myself to blank, what's the solution, right? What can you practically commit yourself to? From then on, that's about a 6-month free course, Destiny I Process Light. It goes into what we talked about. Where does a thought come from? What is a memory? How to forgive, how not to forget, but to accept, and how to commit yourself to change. I completed that course. It was a 6-month course. And then after that, it was a bigger program that actually helps you integrate the change.
Okay, who created this program?
So this Destiny I Process Light program was created by a man by the name of Bernard Pullman, who originates from South Africa. He's no longer with us. I'm not sure which exact year that program came out. I know for the integration software that I currently use, it came out in 2013. But as for the Destiny I Process Light, it could have been as early as the 2010s. It's still available online right now if you go to destinyIprocesslight.com. As for TechnoTutor, it's designed so that people sell you them in their homes. You won't find much information online about it because it is a very one-on-one type of process. And it's kind of like going to the gym. Our muscles our brains are like muscles, right? You got to work on them every day to see the results. If you're not consistent with it, you're not going to see any change. You may not understand what's going on in your muscle when you're doing a bicep curl and working out. You might not understand what's physiologically going on in your bicep, but you understand that after a couple months, your bicep will start getting bigger, right? Or smaller, or whatever you're trying to do. Same thing with this program. You're working on your subconscious, your unconscious programming. After a couple months, you start realizing the change, whether it be you're processing information quicker, you're reading at a faster speed, you're actually comprehending what you're reading, things like that. It doesn't change overnight, but if you do it consistently, it's a huge change that could better your life.
Okay, so does this program work with mindset more than anything else?
No, that's the beauty of it. It's not necessarily a mindset. There's no laws or spiritual or anything involved. It's very simple. It's vocabulary. The world you live in is the words you know. A doctor is a walking medical book. A lawyer is a walking law book. I was in the pharmaceutical industry. I was a walking pharmaceutical book. Show me your 50 most used words, and I can show you your income. It's kind of like show me your 10 closest friends, and I could show you your net worth. Same line. Bill Gates' vocabulary is at a whole nother level than someone who's middle class or homeless, let's say. Your vocabulary is massive. The words you know are massive. So the more you know and the more you can process, the better you'll turn out, the better equipped you will be for life. Now, if you want to attract positive things and think positive things, integrate positive terms into your vocabulary. I know a lot of people who use positive affirmations. Insert that into your tech computer. That can really free you up, because that is like downloading those positive affirmations into your subconscious so that you don't forget them. Because in school, they teach you to memorize things. You have a test coming up, you cram, you spit it out on the test, you forget about it. How much advanced algebra and calculus, physics, all the subjects we learned in high school, how much did we actually retain from that information? Not much. I can tell you the things I put into the software, I retain it. It's in my subconscious. I don't even have to think about it. That's the beauty of using a tool like this, is the power of our subconscious. And not many people investigate and try to explore that.
Now, I agree with you. When you say the word software, are you talking about how your mind works, or are you connecting with a computer to change your mind?
You're doing, when I'm talking about software, I'm talking about a computer software. So you could say our mind is similar to a software, but when I'm talking about a software in this scenario, I'm talking about a computer software that you download onto your computer. The post I had made was, human beings are programmable, much like computers. Like a computer, if a human being has a bad file system format, aka conditions during a child's formative years, so that's the 0 to 7 years I'm talking about, a bad operating system, so the culture they were brought up in, and bad software programs, so that's our beliefs, their output or their behavior will shine through in their life or on the screen if a computer. It will also be bad and will contribute to deteriorating conditions on a mass scale. So that those beliefs, what's happening right now with the politics and the mandates and the vaccines and everything, the beliefs we're programmed to be so dogmatic and affirmative on the beliefs that we think they're facts, and people don't question. And that can lead into a very, very dangerous path. So with this software, you're essentially changing your beliefs. You're opening yourself up to question more, to actually process all the information that's been given to you and determine what's best.
Okay. I remember seeing your post, and you considered the brain as a computer.
Right.
So the computer software that you're talking about, if I understand correctly, is the thoughts that go through your mind. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not really talking about a software within our mind. I'm just saying I'm comparing the mind as if I'm comparing our brain as if it was a processor. The processor of a computer is our brain, and our mind is programmable. You can install programs onto our brain, and our brain processes those programs. Does that make any sense?
Talk more.
Yeah.
Remember, there are people who are hearing this for the first time, so make it as simple as possible.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I'll break it down for this. When it comes to the brain, the most simple I could break it down to is that there's 3 states of mind. You're conscious, your subconscious, and your unconscious. Your conscious is a very small percentage of your brain power that goes to that, right? Your conscious is what you're thinking about. It's what you're aware of right now. It's the words I'm about to say, me moving my right hand up and down. I'm thinking about it in the moment. If I want to think about me feeling me tapping on my forehead, I'm conscious of that. Now your unconscious is your nervous system, me sweating, my heart beating, me breathing. If I had to think about my breathing, I wouldn't live very long. If that was left up to my conscious system, I wouldn't live very long. And your subconscious are your emotions. How am I feeling right now? We're not constantly thinking about that. It could become conscious. But you break those three things down, your unconscious is almost 75% of your brain power that you're not even aware of. So if you were to actually harness that and program more things into that than the things that were programmed into you in the first 7 years of your life, imagine how much more intelligent, powerful, aware you could be. Because the best way to explain it is when you're learning how to tie your shoe, at first you're very conscious of it. Everything you're doing, from tying the first knot to making the loops, putting them together. Then once you start practicing it more and more, it becomes a subconscious thing where it's like, oh, I got to tie my shoe. I'm not too worried about it because I know how to do it, but it's still a burden. By the end, now you can, oh, your shoelaces get undone. You could be having a conversation like you and I are having and just be tying your shoe while not even giving it a single thought, right? Because it's just unconscious. So if you can unconsciously make money, for example, that would be a great skill to have, right? If you can make money while you're sleeping, for example, unconsciously, if you could create anything you want while you're unconsciously, then you know you've mastered that skill.
Have you really mastered the skill if you're doing it without awareness? If you're saying you're doing it subconsciously, you're not very aware of what is happening. And you're
I would
not
say,
very deliberate.
I would say, if you're doing it unconsciously, yes, you've mastered it. If you can do it competently, we use this phrase, unconscious competence. So if you can do it competently, unconsciously, yeah, I believe that's pretty much the level you want to be at for anything. Obviously, you want to be conscious of some things, or else life would be pretty boring, right? But just because you can do something unconsciously doesn't mean that you can't consciously be thinking of it. For example, if I want to be aware of my breathing, I could focus on breathing in and breathing out, be conscious of my breathing.
Would you agree that when you're conscious of your breathing, it quiets down your mind?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the self-forgiveness tools is that once something comes up, a reaction within yourself, the first thing you should do is breathe. Focus on breath and take that breath. And then go into that phrase, well, what am I accepting? I forgive myself for accepting myself to be afraid in this moment, not take responsibility within this moment. But the number one thing is to breathe and slow it down and realize what's going on so that you can at least question yourself to further understand what's going on. And once you're clear, commit yourself to taking that responsibility, to stepping up and changing, to do whatever it is that you're lacking or avoiding or fearing.
But isn't that quietness of the mind, when you quiet it down, from isn't that where all our thoughts come from?
No, I would say you start becoming aware maybe of thoughts, but as I explained it in the beginning, your thoughts aren't really your thoughts. They're kind of pre-programmed into you. If you're raised in a Republican family, you're most likely going to become a Republican. Those beliefs will be integrated from someone at a young age. If you're around an environment, this culture of people that believe a certain way, at a young age, you're going to integrate those programs and act them out. So you have to do a lot of forgiving and a lot of investigating to change those. But most often than not, people are just going to have those programs and stick with them. And you can try and quiet them down, but most people just suppress them.
But by quieting your mind down and becoming aware of how you're feeling, don't you have more power and more control of yourself and the world and what you want?
Repeat that, by quieting them down.
When you quiet down your mind, different types of thoughts come. Isn't it? You said emotions are important. If you are going towards things that make you happy, doesn't that help program your mind to a different wavelength?
To a degree, yeah, could definitely see that being helpful. But what are you ignoring, or what are you fearing? What's your starting point within going towards those emotions? Are those emotions really best? I guess are the questions you should be asking yourself. What could you be suppressing? What could you be fearing? What could you be lacking if you're going just based off of emotion?
It seems like to me, and maybe I'm wrong, that you are looking at, hey, I can't do this. I need to stay in that negative vortex instead of looking at what is joyful, what brings you joy, and what's that to move forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a negative person or pessimistic because I want to look back and investigate. I'm just saying I want to change the world, and in order to do that, I have to change myself first. And I've got to look into why I act and what beliefs I have. And it's good that I can be happy. I can be as enlightened as I want. I can be living in bliss. But is it fair that I have that and others don't? Or people are born into poverty and focus completely on their survival, and that I don't try and do anything about that. I just focus on my own happiness and joy. I personally don't think that's fair, because you are me in another life. And if I was born in Afghanistan and had to walk 5 miles to get clean water every day, I wouldn't even have this opportunity to educate myself and investigate my unconscious programming. I would have to just focus on surviving. And I would be hoping that someone in Canada who's in my position would be doing something to try and change that. You know what I mean? Like there's over 25,000, 20 to 30,000 kids that die globally every day from preventable causes. And I understand that's not right. I'm not alone in that. There's plenty of people who want to do something about it, and it starts with ourselves. So me just focusing on my own happiness isn't going to change that stat. Of course, I want to be happy. Of course, I've got to fix myself in order to step up and actually deliver real change. And mindset is a huge deal because you got to be able to be confident enough to do it. And you got to be somewhat fulfilled. You have to be fulfilled and have a purpose and a mission to fill that out. But if your mission is just to be happy, you're always going to be chasing that happiness, in my opinion. And it's not really a clear purpose.
But everyone, or at least I believe, everyone has a fountain of joy within. And when you share that joy with someone else, you bring them up and you help them grow. And you're saying, don't feel that joy, feel that sadness.
No, not necessarily. Like I said, I don't want people to feel the sadness. I just want people to level up, to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're a bad person, acknowledge that and change that. Like if you're, you know what I mean? If I enjoy murdering people, should I be willing to live out my purpose and my joy of murdering people? No, not necessarily. Like if I was abused when I was a kid, I might have these programs in me that aren't best that I want to play out. And I don't believe that's best. I don't believe that person should be allowed to be happy to hurt people. If your joy is to hurt people, then you can't live in joy, can you? You have to change those beliefs and that programming and actually do the right thing. So not everyone has the right to live in joy, because some people get joy from hurting people, from sexually abusing people, from murdering people. There's all sorts of bad people. And I'm not saying that you need to focus on that, but I'm saying those people need to change. Everyone needs to change for the better to get somewhere. Because if we just ignore the negative, it's going to slow us down. Obviously, I want to bring people up. That everyone should value bringing value to people, and joy and happiness and fulfillment are some of those values for sure.
Okay. We're coming to the end of the show. Could you tell me what you would like to leave our audience with?
Sure. So I guess, final thoughts basically would be to look into self-forgiveness, look into what you've been avoiding, what fears really lie inside of you, what actions you could take to change those, to walk through those fears. Because I'm telling you, at the end of it, you'll feel a lot better than suppressing it or trying to ignore it, as well as find your purpose, find a mission. And it doesn't matter if it takes your whole life to accomplish that purpose. That's what you've been put on this earth to do. It takes 7 years to reconstruct your cells. So if it takes you 7 years to change, that's all right. Change is a consistent process.
But underneath of the change, there's that silence.
Yeah, there certainly is. It lies within everyone. You can't ignore it, that's for sure.
Okay. I want to thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to end the show now. We've been speaking for half an hour.
Right on.
And I want to thank my audience for watching. And I hope we maybe speak again and get a little more clarity on what your main purpose is.
Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely.
And with that, I want to remind you that this show was sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which promotes peace one conversation at a time. And let's wave goodbye. and see you next time. Thank you.
Next time, everyone.